Hey there, this is Therese Skelly, and I am so excited that you are going to be listening to an episode of the Fiercely Brilliant podcast. Do you like those two words? Fiercely brilliant. My hypothesis is that you are here for a reason. We all are. Our souls have led us on journeys that have very often taken some twists and turns, and sometimes it's not pretty. Sometimes there's struggle and there's loss and there's challenge, and in the middle of that, there's always a way out. And it's those times that often lead us into our great life and work. So you're going to hear stories in these episodes of myself and other beautiful people that share the journey. They share how they got to the place where they're standing, working in their brilliance, and being the powerful leaders that they are. So stay tuned and enjoy this episode. Hey, this is Therese Skelly in another episode of the Fiercely Brilliant podcast with the amazing Emma Churchman. We have known each other for years and years and years, and I have seen Emma grow into this powerful, amazingly successful businesswoman who does it her own way. That's a really important thing to talk about. And so, Emma, why don't you start today by sharing what you do and what you love about it?
Sure. Yeah, and thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be in this space with you.
Appreciate that.
I'm a spiritual CEO and advisor to transformational leaders and business owners. So what that means, boots on the ground, is that I go beyond the tactics and strategy of accelerating your income, accelerating your impact, and really look at what's happening energetically in you and in your business and what needs to shift to get you new results.
Nice. I know you have a deeply, deeply spiritual, all of you is deeply spiritual, and you have a lot of abundance today. And we were talking earlier about the myth of, can you be spiritual and wealthy? And so, how did you get there? Let's just talk about your journey and how this question has been with you, and now you teach it, basically. Let's go there.
Yeah. Well, I definitely didn't get it from my upbringing. So
what?
I had to learn it in other ways. Yeah. So the first thing is I'm 12th generation Quaker. I'm actually a Quaker minister. I went to seminary. I've got a master's of divinity. I also have a master's of metaphysics. So I've got this lineage dating back to the time when my ancestors first came to the US of living simply and never living beyond your means. And if you did want to, that's one of the Quaker values. Quakers also really value giving back, being of service. So for Quakers who did make more than enough money to live on, it's just kind of assumed that, of course, you would give that all away.
Oh, shit. So this is in your DNA and you're living it.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Solidly in my DNA. Yeah. And I was known before I became a business coach. I was a spiritual director. I was a chaplain. So I was really accompanying people on their spiritual journey. And a lot of my clients were ministers, pastors, practitioners themselves, a lot of spiritual folks saying, hey, I don't feel like I can charge more than by donation only, or $25 a session or $40 a session, that kind of thing. So even the folks that I was serving before coming into really owning, adding that layer of business support were in this paradigm of, you can't charge for something that you are doing that is divinely directed, that comes from God.
Emma, so many people that I know talk about that, feel that. Well, my work is doing good in the world. How can I charge? I'm a greedy bastard for doing this. So I just want to stop and go, listeners, can you relate? Okay, we're going to keep going because this is big, because so many of us have this. So go through the story. How did you, you were entrenched in it. So how did you start breaking free? And I don't know if you have any stories of and so I only made $500 for the year. You know what I mean? I'm sure you acted that out or lived that out because that's all you knew and you were surrounded by.
Well, yeah. And back in the day when I was just starting my business coaching, I was only making $500 a month. And I started to really look at kind of my own assumptions and expectations around abundance. And I realized, I can't serve people really well if I can't pay my electric bill and if I'm freaking out every time I'm pulling out my credit card in the grocery line to pay for my groceries, right? Like, that's not me being of highest service. So there was that kind of just mindset disconnect that I wanted to start looking at. And then I started to get angry, right? Because I'm working with all of these amazing practitioners who are doing powerful transformational work on this planet, who cannot pay their own bills.
That's great.
And who are not moving humanity forward in the way that we need at this particular time, right? So I think there are two things that are happening on our planet. One is the consciousness, especially during this pandemic, we are really revealing a level of consciousness that humanity has never experienced before. So there's even more of a need for transformational leaders, for personal development folks, for spiritual healers and teachers and practitioners to be doing their work in the world to help these folks who are used to kind of hanging out in the 3D, in the third dimension, and just day-to-day reality, help them get in touch with something beyond them. However they would call that, God, the universe, Yahweh, truth, something greater than themselves, right? So that's one theme that's playing out. And then the other theme that kind of pissed me off is who's in charge of our economy right now and our planet, right? And I thought to myself, I want to be in charge of our economy and what's happening with this thing called money. Because money, like it or not, is what rules the decisions and choices and actions that so many of us make. So that's when I started to get behind this idea of, hold on, what if these amazing transformational leaders, spiritual teachers and healers can start making a shit ton of money and putting their money back into our economy? Then what could be possible?
Woof. So as you were kind of reworking this for yourself, did you get pushback? Were there people either in your community or your family or your peers like, who are you, you greedy bitch? Like, because you literally walked away from all of it. So because many people were raised in a faith tradition or with family or with values that keep them encumbered into poverty. It's righteous to be, the poor kind of thing. So how did you manage that?
Yes. Yeah. So at the time I was engaged to a man who was both an Episcopal priest and a Buddhist priest, right? And so he was also vocationally coming from a similar background as me. And when I started to have this breakout overnight success in my business, he literally told me that I was crazy to think that as a spiritual person, I could make a lot of money, and that I had gone to the dark side and had become, I don't know, evil. I'm not sure exactly all the words he used, but that I had violated the terms of what it means to be a spiritual person. So there was that.
Yeah.
And then I also had close family members say things like, why did you just buy a Mercedes and post about it on Facebook? Like, your clients are going to think that you're just using them, to buy expensive things. And that's a horrible way to do business. And who do you think you are as a business owner to be functioning this way? Yeah. So I had a lot of pushback. And in fact, God bless the Quakers. I love them. Been with them my whole life. They don't know. They still can't figure out what I'm doing. They can't grok it at all. And so they just kind of say things like, oh, that's so nice, and kind of pat me on the head. And
you're like the weird uncle that we love. He's kind of crazy, but yeah. Okay. So if somebody is in that place, because it's like you woke up, you had a knowing, like bullshit is no. And yet your environment was pushing against it. So if somebody's in that place, how do they strengthen their knowing? How do they keep going when they're told they're crazy or evil or in the dark side? Like, what did you do? And because if somebody's listening, they need some tips here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got mentorship.
Yep.
Right. So folks like you and other mentors who can say, hey, you're not crazy.
Exactly.
And it's normal to be feeling the way that you're doing. And this is part of the birthing process of stepping more into your purpose and your genius. Sometimes it looks like isolating from your tribe and your community in order to become that next version of yourself.
Yeah, I remember when we fired the fiance. I remember years ago. It was like, all right, dude, you go. Okay, so then let's talk about identity stuff, because you had this identity of this woman, and yet your soul had the vision of you're a 7-figure business owner.
Yeah.
Was that ever like a little clunky to get to, or was it, like how did you strengthen your knowing? Because I know you talk about mentors, but I think identity is such a big piece for people. How do you grow into who you're supposed to be?
Yeah. It's an interesting theme. If I look back on it over the years, it has to do with permission. How much permission was I willing to give myself at any point in my growth, in terms of how much money I was willing to make, who I was willing to serve, what I was willing to give myself, what kind of intimate relationship I was willing to be in, what kind of colleagues or peers I would allow. So it was all about permission. And the more I gave myself more permission, the more my business grew and the more my income grew.
Okay, so let's break this down. I mean, you didn't just take what was given to you. You actually forged your own way and said, oh, fuck that. This is what I want. How did you get how did you get the courage or the strength or the fortitude? Because I think that's hard for women to literally break through the ceiling, buck convention, and just go, no, I'm having it my way.
Right. Well, my now husband actually had a lot to do with that when we first met. He comes from a lot of wealth and abundance. He is used to having whatever he desires the moment he desires it. And I wasn't raised that way. So I started observing him and his attitude that of course. And he would start to mirror that back to me. I would say, well, I only feel like I could charge XYZ for this program, or who am I to make, $500,000 in 6 months, right? Like, I would say these things to him, and he would look at me with shock. Like, what are you talking about? It's already done. We already decided that was going to happen, or that this was a goal, or whatever it was. And so having him mirror back to me anytime I was limiting myself was really, really helpful.
In contrast with not that many years ago, the other guy who said you were evil because you made 20,000, right? So your soul pulled in the right guy, and you could have repelled that if you still were in the old energy. So let's talk about saying yes to the good when it starts coming, because as a Quaker, you would be used to rejecting it and or giving it away. And so how does somebody go, oh, I want that, and how do I receive that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because as women, especially, we have these coping mechanisms for when things feel too easy, especially anyone who comes from trauma. So trauma defined as anything that separates us from our soul. So that could be physical, sexual, emotional abuse. That could be a situation where you were in foster care or adopted or had some kind of like core separation. And I know, Therese, you talk about this a lot. So for those of us who are women and who come from trauma, when things start to get easy, it can feel really freaking dangerous. Like, oh my gosh, when is the other shoe going to drop?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. I'm not used to this. I don't trust this. Right.
Yeah. And so I've seen a lot of leaders and business owners who are women overcompensate for the ease by working even harder and hustling even more, so that they can somehow deserve the ease that is coming to them. So I noticed myself doing that, and I had to work through that too. And a lot of it happened, me allowing more ease, because my body would shut down anytime I was hustling or working beyond. Moving past the speed of my internal guidance would be one way to think about it. My body would go into getting a migraine, getting sick, having a Lyme disease flare up, that kind of thing, would show me when I was out running my intuition or my inner guidance.
You know, I know the time where you had to basically, because Emma is phenomenal at sales. Like Emma would do live events, boom, pull off 10 clients. I mean, it's just like magic. The woman opens her mouth, people fall in and go, can I give you money? And so she was using speaking gigs to, you know, that was her funnel for getting clients. And tell them the time when you were in bed for like a month.
Yeah.
I went to bed. Fighting it, right?
Yeah.
Fighting it like, holy shit. And then what happened?
Exactly. Yeah. So I went to bed Thanksgiving weekend and I didn't get out of bed till the New Year's Day. Right. Because I was under a lot of stress. I was traveling and speaking a lot. Yeah. My body was not happy with me. And for those of you who have any kind of autoimmune thing inside of you, when there's stress, the body has an inflammation response. So my body got inflamed. I got super tired. So that's what happened. And I remember having this conversation with Therese in which she said, what if the perfect thing to do is rest right now? And I was saying to her, but I'm so close to reaching my annual sales goal. I'm so close. I just have to push through. Yeah. And Therese said, what if that's not the right answer? Mm-hmm. What if you could actually trust your body? And what if you put your business on notice that your business needs to step it up because you're not available? The business needs to make the sales happen. Mm-hmm. And so I lay myself down on my sofa or on my bed. And in the next 30 days, 87,000 in revenue came in. I still to this day cannot tell you how that money showed up or where those people came from. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's all take a breath, right? Because we are conditioned, like we can't let go. And Emma, you have gotten so exquisitely good at surrendering and listening to your energy and following your desire. You truly work in the feminine. Your life is an out picturing of like, nope, I'm working 3 days. I want to hike every day. Like your life today, because I've been with you a while, right? Yeah. And so most of us have had if I want more, I have to hustle more. Getting equals exerting. And so the surrender experience for you and trusting, I always say, if I take care of me, God takes care of my business. Like that's it. It just has to be that way, right? And you prove that. And I know that's what you do with your clients. So talk about the today, because we had a conversation a year ago and I'm like, people want your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So be talking about your freaking lifestyle because it's pretty amazing. And so just talk about that, how you do that, because a lot of people are like, that's not possible. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's about being in expectation and desire. So a year ago, almost to this date, I just put an offer on the house that I'm currently in. So it was a 1970s house on our dream mountain that needed to be gutted down to the studs with a total renovation and with an addition to double the size of the house. But I got the intuition that was the year to buy. That was the year to build the dream house. When I put the offer on the house, I didn't have the down payment and I definitely didn't have the money to do the renovation. Mm-hmm. But it was such this internal yes. So I went into decision about it and I started living as if the house were already done. Ooh. It took 8 months to renovate it. It took $200,000 in cash out of my pocket to be able to move into this house. Wow. In addition to the mortgage, to do all of the renovations during a frigging pandemic when everything costs 10 times as much as it should. And it was a full-time job to do this house renovation, even with my husband's support, my mother-in-law's support. She's a interior designer. And I had to run my business at the same time. And I had the most amazing sales last year. I doubled my business yet again last year during the pandemic, right? For the second year in a row, working even less than I've worked in the past and marketing even less. I can't think of a single marketing campaign I did last year, but I had multi-six-figure months, several months last year because I was in decision and the money showed up. So what I was doing was building my house, going hiking, figuring out how to deliver to my clients 100%. And then I just had the expectation that everything else was going to work itself out.
Nice.
And it did consistently. Everything was provided for me because I wasn't doubting my decisions. I knew that they were soul aligned, and I was just taking the next step in front of me consistently for 8 months.
And in spite of not having the cash, not having the 3 more sales will come in and I'll pay, you just took faith. You had the faith.
Yeah.
Like you say, I had the decision and I acted as it was done. So you just moved. It's like, of course, you used a word, and we've talked about this a lot, is being aligned. And in the old days, you did Facebook Lives, you had all this other stuff, and slowly you've started chopping away things that are no longer aligned. And it's a paradox. Again, women, don't we have to do more? Don't I have to give extra? Shouldn't I be more available? Like that proving energy, that old codependent, and you just chop the shit out of things.
Right.
And you don't have a Facebook group? What? And you're doing things that only serve your energy. And so how did that work? And what are the results? Because again, if you're listening, guys, these are clues. Like we're sharing her story, but we're giving the how to get to where she is parts of it. So talk about alignment and how you trust that and how you then decide to chop stuff or realign.
Yeah. So the path of alignment, which is alignment to, in my language, alignment to your natural soul design and way of operating. The path of alignment is no longer doing anything that is misaligned. So it's being willing to say no to all of the things that your ego or even your business coach tells you that you should do if you are a good entrepreneur, and really trusting yourself and backing yourself 100% to only do your business in the way that you want to. That's what allows the flow to come in when it comes to money and sales.
And sometimes it takes courage, because sometimes you have to let go of team members, or you have to stop selling programs that have previously been very generative. And so how does one know, like, if there's this is a misaligned feeling and this is an aligned feeling, because those words are really familiar to us, but maybe a listener doesn't really, so let's ground that a little bit.
Okay. So, a very clear example of it would be if you've had a program or a product that has been selling for a while, you've been successful with it, your marketing has worked, your sales have worked, and then all of a sudden it feels like it stopped selling. And it's just crickets. Every time you put out a marketing message, you're not getting any response. And you're noticing that when you think about delivering that program or product or service, there's a little bit of energy of resentment or frustration around it.
You never want to have oh shit, I got to get on that call. You never want that experience, right?
So that indicates that there's a misalignment, and that's normal, because when you're growing and evolving as a conscious being, your programs, your products, your services have to grow with you. And it's normal to start outgrowing programs that you launched 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years, 5 years ago, right? This expectation that, if I create a program, it's always going to be monetizable, it's always going to be wildly successful, is not true if you are on a more conscious path and you are evolving. So to notice that stuckness, and instead of getting frustrated or thinking I have a lead generation problem, to really look at that and to honestly ask yourself, is this feeding my soul? Is this feeding the core of who I am at this time? And if not, it's a misalignment.
Great question. So then what does alignment feel like? Or what are the results?
Yeah. The results are you get clear on a program or product or service you want to offer. You really do your boots on the ground homework in terms of marketing, messaging, and speaking to your ideal audience and the transformation that your program is going to offer and the pain your people are in. You do that strategy, and then you get in the expectation. I do this all the time. If I'm going to go to the bother of putting out a marketing message, I expect that at least one person's going to buy from me.
Okay.
And when you have that level of expectation and clarity, the sales come in.
Nice.
That's alignment. That's what it feels like. Or if, for example, when I was talking about lying on the sofa for a month or in bed and the sales coming in, I was in alignment with my expectation that the business was going to have to figure out sales. There was no block to me with that possibility.
That's yummy. So if somebody's listening to this and they really resonate with like, I have got some stuff around like being spiritual and being wealthy, those feel very like they conflict with each other. Where do they start? What do they do?
You might ask yourself, whose permission am I seeking here?
Nice.
Because someone has told you that you cannot be spiritual and wealthy. Who is that person? And do you agree with that? If you're able to put that message into the form of another human being, do you agree with that other human being's thought? And then the next step is, what permission do you want to give yourself around this? What would feel good to you? When you're in the grocery line, what reality do you want to have there when it comes to checking out and paying for your groceries? At a very base minimum example.
And Emma and I give you full permission, right? To be fully expressed in all your gifts and be receiving good money for that, right? Like, I know Emma's story. This isn't like everything's been so easy. Like, Emma worked her ass off. She's overcome things, as have I. So our souls, we've been in Earth School a long time. Like we've fought the demons. We've done the battles. It's time to get paid really well for our gifts and our contribution. So I'm thinking there are people out there going, who the hell is this woman and how can I follow her? Oh my God. So like, where do they find you and follow you?
Yeah, a couple places. Website is emmachurchman.com. Facebook, Coaching Entrepreneurs. Instagram, Emma M. Churchman. And connect with me. Let me know that you listen to this podcast.
Perfect. And she has the most adorable little dogs. And so on Instagram, you'll see all the photos of her dogs and the hiking and her beautiful environment she lives in. So Emma, you're a miracle. And I love that you're out there doing the work, because you shine, you show us a way that not a lot of people are showing, right? That you can not only be deeply spiritual, of high service, and be fully compensated for that, and do it in a way that's not killing yourself, doing it in a way that's not selling out, or because like you are living a beautiful life. And that's a priority. The time with your man and your dogs and your land. So it's not an either or. You're living this beautiful example of you can do it. You can do it. So just thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. And as I always say, I want you to think of two people that you go, holy heck, they need to hear this message, right? Because we have to start breaking the paradigms. You can be a deeply spiritual person of high service and receive a shit ton of money. There's no value. There's no crime in that. No devaluing it. And Emma's in a beautiful example. I love how you talked about you decide and you align, boom, and then let life, God, universe, source take over. All right. Peace and blessings. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you later. Bye.
Hey, I really appreciate you listening to that last episode. And I would love to get to know you a little bit more and to get to connect with you on a deeper level. And here's what I suggest. I've got a Facebook group that corresponds with the content of these podcasts. It's called Fiercely Brilliant Women in Business with Therese Skelly. So if you just search Facebook, Fiercely Brilliant with Therese Skelly, you'll find the group. It's a really nice group. It's a small group, and I'm super active in it. Each week, we have a lot of supportive conversations. I share a lot of resources. I do a lot of coaching on the spot, and I would love to have you join me there. So if you like the vibe of this podcast and you want to hang out with a pretty darn cool community of women, join us at Fiercely Brilliant on Facebook with Therese Skelly. Alrighty, peace and blessings, and I hope to see you in the group. Bye now.